You know that feeling? You're keeping an eye on Bitcoin, things seem okay, and then bam, this wave of doubt just hits you.
Absolutely.
One minute things look positive, the next minute your feed is just exploding with scary headlines.
Yeah, it's relentless
It feels
sometimes.
like a constant attack, and honestly, figuring out what's real news and what's
Hmm.
something else, it feels almost impossible sometimes.
Right. And that's something else you mentioned. Often it's quite deliberate. Today, we're really zeroing in on a key piece of the Bitcoin puzzle, FUD.
FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt.
Exactly. You've probably heard the term thrown around, but we want to go a bit deeper than just the acronym.
Yeah, think of this as like an inside look, an anatomy of FUD, specifically how it operates in the Bitcoin world. We'll look at who's behind it, why they do it, the kind of sneaky tricks they use.
And crucially, how it all ripples through the market. But maybe more importantly, we want to give you some tools, some ways to kind of shield yourself from it.
Because getting a handle on FUD isn't just some academic thing, is it?
Not at all. It can directly impact your investment choices and, let's face it, your general sanity in this space.
Okay, so let's jump right in. Spreading negative vibes isn't unique to Bitcoin, obviously.
No, it happens everywhere.
But Bitcoin's prominence, its position, it just makes it such a big target. It's like being the lead singer everyone's watching, every little wobble gets amplified.
That's a great analogy. And when we dissect FUD targeting Bitcoin, you see it hitting these really core emotional triggers. It taps into our worries.
Right. So first up is fear. Pure, raw fear. We're talking about those alarming warnings, the crash is coming, or regulators are about to ban it, or major security flaw found.
The goal is simply to create panic.
And that panic leads people to do what?
Well, it often triggers that gut reaction
Yeah.
sell. People see the price dropping, they worry it'll go to zero, and they just want out. Often selling right when the FUD spreaders might want them to.
Okay, so fear is one element, then there's uncertainty. This feels a bit more subtle.
It is. This is where the little seeds of doubt about Bitcoin's future start getting planted. Is this tech really going to last? What if governments do crack down? Maybe it's all just, smoke and mirrors.
It makes you second guess your conviction, right?
Exactly. It erodes that confidence, makes holding through volatility feel way riskier. It can scare off new people thinking about getting involved. It makes you question the whole basis for believing in it.
And the third piece you mentioned is doubt. How's that different from uncertainty?
Doubt goes a step further. It's not just questioning the future, it's questioning the present legitimacy. Is Bitcoin really money? Is it actually a valid investment? Can it stand up to, say, the traditional banking system?
So FUD often paints it as somehow flawed or not quite real.
Precisely. By constantly questioning its basic value proposition, the idea is to undermine its credibility, slow down adoption, make it seem less legitimate.
Okay, so we get what FUD does, plays on fear, uncertainty, doubt. But who's actually doing this? Who are the players spreading it, and I guess what's their angle?
Well, the motivations can be pretty varied. A big group, potentially, is large holders, the whales, and maybe some sophisticated traders.
Ah, the market manipulator.
Possibly. They might deliberately push out negative info, true or not, just to trigger a sell-off.
Why? To create panic?
So they can buy more Bitcoin at a discount. It's a strategy. Create the dip, then buy the dip you created.
A high-stakes game. Can you recall any examples? Maybe something specific.
Well, think back to times when maybe a minor technical issue, something developers were already addressing, got blown way out of proportion by anonymous accounts online.
Yeah, I remember some of those scares.
And then suddenly there's a sharp price drop. A few days later, data might show large wallets accumulating significantly during that dip. Now, correlation isn't proof.
Sure, but it definitely makes you wonder.
It raises questions about orchestrated FUD. Another source is simply competition.
From who?
Both traditional finance banks, established institutions, and maybe even other crypto projects.
Okay, so the old guard feeling threatened.
Could be. Bitcoin is disruptive. They might have an interest in casting doubt on it to protect their own turf. It's sort of a defensive move.
And other cryptos. Why would they spread FUD about Bitcoin?
Some might try to highlight Bitcoin's perceived weaknesses, maybe transaction speed or energy use, to make their own coin look better by comparison. It's marketing, but negative marketing.
Interesting. You also mentioned political and regulatory interests. That sounds potentially significant.
It can be. Governments or regulatory agencies might issue statements, float potential new rules, or even take actions that, intended or not, create a lot of uncertainty.
And their reasons could be mixed, right?
Mhm.
Genuine concern versus maybe wanting control.
Exactly. It could be about protecting consumers, or it could be about maintaining control over finance, or maybe just testing the waters to see how the market reacts.
Hmm.
Even just talking about potential regulations can send waves of FUD.
But it's crucial to remember not all negative stuff is malicious FUD, right?
Absolutely not. That's a key point. Sometimes it's just misinformation or a genuine lack of understanding. Bitcoin and blockchain are complex.
Sure.
Someone might just misunderstand a technical detail or repeat a flawed argument they heard somewhere else without any bad intentions. They're spreading FUD, but unintentionally.
Right. And the last group you mentioned felt a bit darker. Cybercriminals and fraudsters.
Yeah, they definitely leverage FUD. Think about it. When there's chaos and uncertainty, it's easier for them to operate.
How so?
They might spread fear about a fake security flaw right before launching a phishing attack, trying to get your private keys, or create hype and then FUD around a new, dodgy project right before they pull the rug.
So they use the FUD as cover or distraction.
Exactly. People are emotional, scared, confused. They become easier targets for scams.
Okay, so we have a clearer picture of the who and why. Now, let's talk tactics. What does FUD actually look like day to day? How is it delivered?
Well, one of the most common ways is through sensationalist or misleading news headlines. You see them everywhere.
Oh, yeah. The clickbait specials.
Exactly. They take a minor issue, blow it totally out of proportion, maybe present only half the story, or sometimes just make things up to generate fear and clicks, like those Bitcoin doomed headlines over a minor bug that got fixed hours ago.
We've all scrolled past those. And then there's just the constant hum of unfounded rumors online, isn't there?
Social media, forums, Telegram groups, they can become hotbeds for pure speculation. Someone anonymous posts a wild claim, no evidence, but it gets shared and repeated.
And suddenly people are panicking based on nothing concrete.
Exactly. Anxiety spreads like wildfire, even without facts.
I've also seen attacks that feel more personal, like going after key people in the Bitcoin space or attacking the core ideas behind Bitcoin itself.
Yes, that's another angle. It's not just about the price, it's about undermining the whole movement. This might involve trying to trash the reputation of well-known developers or thinkers.
Or constantly hammering on things like energy use or its use by criminals.
Right, or it's decentralization often attacking these fundamentals without giving the full picture or context.
And speaking of context, what about taking quotes out of context? That seems like a classic technique.
Oh, definitely. Someone influential might say something nuanced, maybe weighing pros and cons. The FUD tactic is to grab just the negative snippet.
And blast it out so it sounds way worse than it was intended.
Precisely. And if the quote is from a recognized expert, it gives the FUD this false air of authority. Very manipulative.
And the last tactic you flagged was this excessive focus on minor negatives, kind of amplifying the bad stuff and ignoring the good.
Yeah, it's about skewing perception. Take the energy debate again. FUD pieces will scream about electricity use.
But conveniently forget to mention the rapidly growing use of renewables in mining.
Exactly. Or they fail to compare it to the energy footprint of, say, the entire global banking system or gold mining.
Right. Or they'll talk endlessly about volatility.
Without mentioning Bitcoin's resilience and massive long-term growth despite that volatility. Or they focus on illicit use, ignoring that cash is still king for criminals. It's selective storytelling.
Okay, so what's the actual damage when a FUD campaign really hits home? How does it affect the market, the price, the people involved?
Well, the impact can be pretty dramatic. The most obvious effect is usually sharp, sudden price drops.
The panic selling kicks in.
Right. If the FUD successfully creates widespread fear, you can see Bitcoin's price just plummet in a short period.
We've definitely seen those days. And it doesn't just drop, it gets really choppy too, right? Increased volatility.
Exactly. FUD injects uncertainty, and uncertainty makes prices swing more wildly. It becomes much harder to navigate, riskier, especially if you're trying to trade short term.
And beyond the charts, there's a psychological impact, isn't there? The erosion of investor confidence.
That might be the most damaging effect long term. Constantly hearing negative narratives can scare away potential new investors.
And it can shake the belief of people who are already holding.
Absolutely. It can wear down their conviction in Bitcoin's future, make them question their own judgment.
Which can then lead to Impulsive decisions.
Yes. People react out of fear or anxiety. They might sell at the bottom, locking in a loss because they can't handle the FUD anymore.
And then they miss the recovery when it eventually happens.
Exactly. Or they get scared off from buying during a dip that might, in hindsight, have been a good opportunity. Emotional reactions driven by FUD rarely lead to good investment outcomes.
Okay, this is painting a clear picture of the threat. So now the really practical part. How do we, as individuals interested in Bitcoin, protect ourselves? How do we build resilience against this FUD?
Well, the absolute number one most fundamental thing is do your own research. DYOR.
The classic crypto mantra.
It's classic for a reason. Don't just react to a scary headline or a random tweet. Actually dig in. Look for reputable crypto news sites, read the project white papers if you can, follow developers and analysts who have a solid track record.
So build your own understanding, basically.
Right.
Yes, your own research is your best defense. Which ties into the next point. Really try to understand Bitcoin's fundamentals.
How it actually works, why it has value.
Exactly. Grasping things like decentralization, the fixed supply, the security model, its potential as a long-term store of value, having that foundation makes you way less susceptible to narratives that try to undermine it.
It gives you an anchor when the FUD storm hits.
Precisely. Another key thing is to cultivate a long-term perspective.
Easier said than done when the price is tanking.
It is, but it's crucial. Bitcoin's history is volatile. We've seen huge went-ups and deep corrections. They're part of the market cycle. If your plan is long-term,
Then short-term FUD-driven dips shouldn't necessarily derail your whole strategy.
right, zoom out, look at the bigger picture. It helps manage the emotional reaction to short-term noise.
And that leads directly to the next piece of advice. Don't let emotions run the show.
It's probably the hardest one, but maybe the most important for your portfolio. Avoid panic selling. Avoid FOMO buying based on hype.
Have a plan and stick to it.
Pretty much. Know why you invested, understand your risk tolerance, and try to execute your strategy logically, not emotionally. Emotional trading usually costs you money.
Okay. What about diversification? Does that help against Bitcoin-specific FUD?
It can. Even if you're a huge Bitcoin believer, putting all your eggs in one basket is risky. Spreading investments across maybe other cryptos you've researched or even other asset classes entirely.
Can cushion the blow if Bitcoin FUD hits particularly hard.
Yeah, just basic risk management, really.
Makes sense. Another skill seems to be getting better at judging sources. Who should we listen to?
That's vital. You need to be critical. Ask yourself, who is sharing this information? What might be their motive? Are they generally credible? Do they have skin in the game?
Look for potential bias.
Always. Consider who benefits if you believe the FUD they're spreading. Be skeptical.
And finally, sometimes, maybe the best tactic is just to switch off. Disconnect from the noise.
Honestly, yes. If you find yourself getting overwhelmed by the negativity on Twitter or certain forums or news feeds, just take a break.
Step away for a bit.
Exactly. Protect your mental space. Constantly consuming FUD isn't healthy and probably won't lead to better decisions. A temporary disconnect can really help you regain perspective.
So wrapping this up, it really sounds like FUD isn't going anywhere, is it? It's just part of the territory with Bitcoin.
I think that's fair to say. As long as Bitcoin is relevant and, frankly, challenging established systems, it's going to attract FUD, both legitimate criticism and deliberate manipulation.
And this feels like the key takeaway, we're not helpless. By understanding what FUD is, how it works, recognizing the tactics.
And by actively using these strategies, DYOR, fundamentals, long view, emotional control, checking sources, taking breaks,
We can actually become more resilient. We can navigate this landscape with more confidence and make smarter choices despite all the noise trying to throw us off.
Precisely. Knowledge, critical thinking, patience, and maybe a healthy dose of skepticism. Those are your best assets in this market.
That's a great summary. And in that note, maybe here's something for you, the listener, to think about after this deep dive. We've talked a lot about FUD and Bitcoin, but in this age of just information overload everywhere, how do we get better at filtering signal from noise, not just for our crypto, but for everything we read and hear every day? Something to chew on.